cell phones on silent. And Nancy, will you do a roll call, please?
Ackerman? Here. Dye? Here. Genema? Here. LaPointe?
Here.
Mr. Scott is in sunny Florida. White is excused, and Zollinger?
Here. Actually, White is on a sunny mountain. He has his Elk Rapid ski team up at Petoskey, so he calls it, I'm not going to make it. So he's in a sunny area also, it's just White.
Yeah, a little colder.
A little colder. Thank you. At this time, we always open for limited public comment, so is there anybody that has any public comment?
Just a couple of quick ones. One is just a little thing that kind of bugs you when you see it all the time. You think eventually it'd correct itself, but it kind of continues to linger. Just procedurally, I like to see old business addressed before we get to new business. Seems like, particularly with some of our meetings lasting so long, we get bogged down in new business, and then the hot topics from the last meeting, such as old business, kind of get forgotten. They don't get maybe corrected in the spirit in which they were originally brought to the table. And I just think the board might consider moving old business ahead of new business in the future, just as a matter of routine. The other issue has to do, and you could probably answer it, I read over the proposed changes on the FOIA procedure. Had a couple questions on it, but if we're going to open it up to public comment during that subject, I'll hold till later on. That's all I have.
Thank you. Appreciate your comment. Brian?
Good evening. Among some members of the community, there has been interest in the final stormwater design plans for the VGT project. The Planning Commission motion for approval on January 12, 2012 required that final versions of those plans, including creek monitoring plans, be submitted before Acme granted a land use permit or construction began. Jay Zollinger was the chairman of the PC at that time. I wanted to see those plans, so I submitted a FOIA to Township. When I arrived to view the documents on December 29th, I was told that they were not available and that they were still being produced. How is it that a land use permit was issued by Township without those documents? How is it that apparently the Planning Commission and this board approved in May 2014 that store construction could begin while the Township did not even have final plans? When I was verbally told that the plans were not available, I followed up with an email asking the Township FOIA coordinator to acknowledge that the documents were not available and to explain why they were not provided. I have not received a reply. The state law that governs FOIA requests requires that entities give explanations when they do not return requested documents. The Acme Board of Trustees approved the requirement that those plans be provided to Township before the LUP was issued. Citizens and planners should not need to wonder whether conditional approval controls on projects are being enforced. They should not need to file FOIAs to learn facts they should be proactively sharing. How did this occur? Another part of item number 1 in the FOIA was a plan for monitoring Acme Creek. Apparently we still don't have that. Of course, that plan assumed that everything in the construction project went perfectly. And while we still need that plan, what we need right now is an enhanced monitoring plan. Township trustees spoke about this at the October 2nd meeting, but here we are 3 months later and we still don't have that. That must come from Township, not from DEQ or county. The Township should ask Dr. Chris Grobel for a recommendation on an enhanced monitoring plan. But what we need is action. After much talk, the board has not followed through. The problem has not gone away. On December 27th, there was significant discharge at the Acme Creek. It was worse than at any time observed in November or December. The concentration of clay levels in the discharge significantly increased, reversing a previous trend of improvement. On December 14th, the new creek algae growth observed on November 30th was observed to have significantly spread. Thank you.
Brian, I'd like to comment on a few of those issues.
Yes, please.
Number 1 is on the FOIA request. I believe when you come in and talk to Kathy on the one issue, she said to you should please talk to me. You've never come in since then. So we had no chance. We do have construction drawings, always have had construction drawings. We do not have, in some cases, final drawings because everything is not finalized. So there's a difference between a construction drawing and a final drawing. We do have them. They're available. We're glad to put them on a CD and give you a whole set of them. I think you've probably already seen them, but if you hadn't, we'd be glad to do that. That's not a problem.
I have attached to my comment the motion by Karsten, support by Gamaguchi, final, and
That's not what I'm saying, Ron.
yeah.
You're using the word final drawings. I'm saying we have the construction drawings. We're still finishing the final on some of the stormwater because of the work being going on there. So we do not have those. The board approved it at that time. We were not the board. I can't answer for what all they had. But you're glad to look at any drawings we have. There's not a problem with that, but you were told how to do that and you did not come back in and ask. I apologize for that. Maybe that was misplaced. Second thing,
Yes.
on your report of the 27th, you sent a report not to the township, but to Mr. Grobel and many other people. The DEQ's been to the site. Okay, we've had Gosling Schubeck to the site and spent a lot of money. Nothing was found, period. On the bloom, Mr. Grobel went out on the algae bloom when you reported that, found nothing, reported back to us, that was reported. So I don't know where you're coming up with this stuff. I don't know that you have the expertise or don't have, but our experts that we hire and pay have been out there, they have looked. That report from Gosling Schubeck is on our website. It's available to anybody. Anybody can look at it. So I just want to make sure the public knows that some of the things you're stating aren't true as viewed by our hired expertise. So I apologize for having to say that to you, but that's a fact.
That's fine. On the
We'll
motion,
move on now, his 3 minutes are up, I'd like to say something.
all right.
Yes.
Al
Al,
Rodrello.
thank you.
Excuse me.
I'm cutting in my time.
I don't think we'll do
Al Rodrello. I'd like to know how much more time we're gonna spend as a community and as a board, wasting our time with unexpertise, if you will, on this whole subject. This is a construction project. It's not an erector set. Pieces aren't marked A and B. You have to deal with the things as they come along, but the end product is what we're looking for. I guess what I'm asking the board, I'm appealing to the board, to knock off this nonsense. Quit spending my money as a taxpayer on useless reports from individuals who have no expertise in what they're doing. You pay, we pay for experts to consult with the developer who has lost millions of dollars on this project, who I'm sure he'll never get back. And I think it's time we move on. Let's get this store open. Let's hope that these people who have all these problems shop someplace else and don't use the services that are available there, and move on.
Thank you. Since it's public comment, any other public comment? Dave?
I'm Dave Hoxie, M72. I want to second what Al just said. I spent quite a bit of time on the phone today with the engineers. I asked them specifically what is going on. They told me in no uncertain terms, which is on our website for everybody to look at. And I guess I wonder why we're wasting everybody's time going over the same old stuff every month. Thank you very much. But they said everything is in good shape. I talked about algae blooms. I talked about sediment in the creeks, the whole thing that was just mentioned. And they said everything is ready to roll.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody on board? Gordy?
Just a follow-up comment on that. I guess if a citizen has a concern about something, they certainly have a right to voice that concern. And if they want to call the DEQ, and the DEQ on their dime wants to run out someplace, shoot the lock off. If they want to call the county, and the county on their dime wants to run out there, shoot the lock off. But if we're paying Dr. Grobel or Gosling or anybody else, we're following the directive of a citizen, that's totally incorrect. If somebody wants to initiate an action that is going to have an expense to this board, to the taxpayers, it has to come through the board. I would hope we're informing Gosling or anybody who's acting on our behalf not to follow the direction of citizens who are calling them just ad hoc and requesting their services. So I don't know if this is costing us any money directly on sending people out there at people's requests, but hopefully they are being told they are not to take action from a citizen unless they want to do it on their own dime.
Tom?
I, for one, appreciate the diversity of the inquiries made by our citizenry. Brian's comments, his interest in our waterways cannot be discouraged. I think they are commentaries that do need to be addressed during this meeting, and I think they are valid. He is near and dear to this community his entire life. Our waterways are very, very important to him, and I think all of us. And if he has an inquiry or a question to be brought up in front of this board, then I think it's absolutely appropriate. I totally agree with what Gordon has said in terms of our experts responding to requests from the township, which you represent, the citizenry. And if something comes to your attention that needs to be addressed, by all means, you are the person to do that, not myself or others necessarily this audience. But his interest in our waterway is paramount to all of us. And I think it would be foolish to just assume that the developer is going to take care of everything. Because quite frankly, folks, it doesn't work that way, and you all know. Thank you.
I would like to comment to that.
Yes, please.
Dr. Grobel, in our last meeting that we had, a special meeting, said this developer has done everything we asked and more. So we have.
Okay.
There also
So
is
did the Verizon people.
there are procedures that if somebody wants on the site, they have to go ask the people to be on site. Nobody in this township and nobody in the citizenry should be on anybody's property without approval from the property owner. That has not been followed, as my understanding, by many people. And it needs to be. Somebody could be arrested for trespassing if they don't. That is a civil issue, it's not a township issue, but.
Now, that wouldn't apply if they were in the water.
Yes, it can.
Riparian right?
Huh?
Riparian right in the waterway?
I think
Is
it
that
can.
navigable
Yes.
water?
Yes.
If it's navigational water, it's riparian. I would tell you Acme Creek's riparian. Once you get into the bay, it's navigational. So if you're floating on the water,
Even walking
in
it.
theory,
Even walking it.
you would be
Riparian right.
okay. But if you're on the ground,
On the
or
ground,
you're
that's different.
anchored, or you're anchored,
You're standing in that river and you should be
You are
allowed.
trespassing.
In my mind, it's a civil issue, not a township issue. It's between owners of property, multiple properties, and people that do that. So it's not our issue. I respect what you're saying.
Okay.
We all do, I think all of us would say in this room, everybody here respects the water and what the water's about. If we don't, there's something wrong living where we live and using the water resource we do. But it has to be reported and things have to be brought up by people that know what they're talking about. And when you bring up things that aren't there, there is cost. The algae bloom is a case that we've had cost on by Dr. Grobel to go out and look at something that's not there and has not been there. Okay? And
I guess I would only say that I know of 2 instances where we've had a large amount of clay silt go into the bay that we know have happened in the past. And I, for one, am holding my breath for April/May.
nobody wants those kind of things to happen. We all agree with that. Thank you for Anybody else tonight? Robert?
Robert Ivanez, 6075 Arabian Lane. I swore tonight I wasn't gonna say anything, but it's just the same thing again. It gets my blood pressure going. I pay taxes for a house in this community and 3 separate businesses in this community. I could argue till I'm blue in the face that I have as much to lose in this community as anybody if something happens to that bay up there, because 3 of my businesses are on it. If I thought for a second that this developer had done anything underhanded or wasn't doing his best to protect that waterway and that bay, I would be picking it harder than anybody in this room. But I listened to all the experts at every meeting, Dr. Grobel, John I, who represents the community, another expert, I don't remember his name. Everyone said he's went above and beyond they've ever seen. The one gentleman specialized in this, goes all over the state of Michigan, and said he's never seen a developer stand up and do the things that he's done. It gets to a point where we're spending money, now we're talking about money. I talked to most of you prior to your election in public settings. You all espoused the commitment to defending the taxpayers and running an efficient government. Now we're spending money on a non-expert. I don't know if this man pays taxes in this community. I don't know if he lives in his mother's basement. I have not a clue about this man. But we're getting to the point of being ridiculous now, where he can write letters and he can instigate our people to come out and they're going to charge the taxpayers. I'm a taxpayer here. I don't want to see that anymore. I've heard the experts speak. They all said he's doing what's supposed to be done. He's doing a good job. We have a good developer that's not running from the problem. We're getting to the point of ridiculous.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah,
Charlene.
Charlene Abernethy, 4312 Westridge Drive. I just think it's very wrong to use this as a forum to cut people down, and I think on the part of the audience or on the part of the board, it's very wrong.
That is sure not our intent, but we do have to address issues, Charlotte. Okay, any other comments? Right here.
Thank you, Jay. Just a couple thoughts. First of all, with regard to public comment, that's rules of procedure, so a member of the public can get up and speak about anything on their mind, and we need to honor that. Secondly, I've taken a lot of my personal time and I've looked at water quality, because the big question, the elephant in the room, which hasn't been answered till recently, is has there been an impact to Acme Creek and an impact to the bay? And the recent water quality testing has shown no. I went back to the watershed center testing, which covers testing of Acme Creek at where the former tasting room was, and also where the Acme Creek goes out into the bay. And I took a look and I pored over that. And a couple people in this room know that because I've had discussions. And that data is there consistently from 2003 to 2014. There is nothing there that shows that Acme Creek has been devastated or flummoxed to any horrible extent because of this development. There is nothing there. I'm not a scientist. I can analyze data, and I know that the people who take the watershed center data, they're volunteers, but they are neutral, they have a consistent methodology, and you can go online and read it. So just, if you're concerned about the water, and you're concerned about the bay, and concerned about Acme Creek, look at the data that's out there and available today, and draw your own conclusions, rather than accuse of a devastation that is not substantiated. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you, Jean. Thank you for doing your research.
At this time, approval of agenda. Was there any other comments? I need to make sure I allow that. Need a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve agenda.
Before I do, I'm sorry, I should say, I want to add something to the agenda. Nancy, I thought we had an item on for the road commission approval. Was that handed out there?
The Holiday Hills one?
Yes. I just don't have mine.
It should be.
Is it in there? I want to add that to the agenda. The road commission on our SAD district came back to us and wants just an agreement between us. Jeff, I sent that to you to look at. Pretty much boilerplate. We got it Monday after the holiday, and I would just like to add that to tonight's agenda to prove that Kathy and I can sign that to move on. We had already, as a board, approved the expenditures of that, but I just want to add that to the agenda. Okay, so let me make
Where do you want to add that?
it'll be new business 6.
Okay.
And what's the other one?
I would like to add under old business, number 3, I'd just like to do call it a clerk's update. That's regarding the procedures.
Oh, thank you. Any other? If not, then a motion to approve agenda as amended.
I don't think we had a second.
But we hadn't asked,
Oh,
I added those items now, and now we need to approve. So what are you still?
Yeah, motion to approve the agenda with the additions of, under new business, item number 6, concerning the road commission request. And under K, old business number 3, an update by the clerk.
You have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Amy. Any question? Otherwise, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Inquiry to conflict of interest from anybody tonight, anything on the agenda? Hearing none. Consent calendar. I'll read it. The purpose is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together for one board motion, roll call vote, without discussion. The request to remove any item for discussion later in the agenda from any particular member of the board, staff, or public shall be granted. Receive and file treasurer's report. Item B, clerk's revenue expenditure report and balance sheets. Item C, draft unapproved meeting minutes of Planning Commission of 12/8/14, Parks and Recs Advisory 11/5/14. Item D, Metro newsletter December 2014. Item C, Parks and Maintenance report, Tom Hinkle. Item F, zoning report, Lennox. Item G, new budget amendment resolution template. Item H, 2015 Planning Commission meetings schedule. For approval, A, Acme Board special meeting minutes of 11/25/14 and 12/11/14 and regular meeting of 12/2/14. Item B, accounts payable prepaid of $7,363.68 and current to be approved of $49,971.76. Recommend approval, Kathy Dye, clerk. Are there any items to be removed from the consent calendar at this time? I have one. I would like to take the zoning report off. That would be item F. Anybody else? Any other items anybody would like to? Otherwise, I'll take a motion. Yes. Oh, anybody in the audience wants to take it? Thank you, Jeff. Hearing none, bring it back. Need a motion to approve the consent calendar minus the items removed.
Make a motion to approve consent calendar items removed.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any questions, discussion? Hearing none, since we have money being approved in that portion of it, roll call please, Nancy.
Guy,
Yes.
Genema,
Yes.
LaPointe,
Yes.
Salinger,
Yes,
Ackerman,
Yes.
motion carries.
thank you. The next item is the items moved to, from the consent calendar. I just would like to point out, and with Amy's help, she'll help me on this if I need it, and probably will. We talk about growth and what's going on in the township and permits being issued and everything going on. And in the zoning report, would like, since the public might not have saw this yet, we have issued in the last couple of years a lot more land use permits for houses, updates, buildings, commercial, all kinds. So then I looked at the number, and that's a nice number to know you have a lot of permits, but what's it equate to in revenue to the township? Not to the area, but to the township. And in 13, 14, and 15, we have increased our revenue due to permits being issued and growth going on in Acme. And I think we should be proud as in Acme of seeing that. Not only in new businesses, but new houses. And that ranges from one end to the other. New decks on houses, new garages, all that adds in. The tax-based addition to Acme Township in 2013 was $16,147. This is money we keep in this township. This is not money I pay the school, I pay the fire, anything else. That's this township. In 2014, we increased another $16,827. The projection for 2015, or the 2015 report, is $45,324. And we still don't have a lot of the major things that are going on. Now I have this broken down between houses and commercial. It's different each year, but it is tremendous amount of growth. So it comes from the things we're all doing, everybody does, to make the township grow in different ways. People that just want to add an addition that live here, people that want to build something new in our township. Is there anything else you can think of that, Amy, from an assessing perspective? Amy pulled some reports for me because this is data that the normal assessor, Dawn, sent me some, our assessor. But I thought that's a different view of permits. The permit number is one thing, but what's it equate to the pocketbook? And that we don't just issue for that reason, but there is a byproduct which helps us. That money helps us do other things to grow the township, to improve the township, to make the township better. That's all I wanted to add on that, so need a motion to approve that report otherwise, unless there's any comment. Anybody?
Motion to approve the
Zoning
report,
report.
Nikki Long's zoning administrator's report.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Aye. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. No special presentations or discussion tonight. The first report, Sheriff Deputy, Officer Chuck.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Well, December looks like it was down across the board numbers wise, so we'll just focus on the year-end totals, which sound better. 3,098 total calls for service in 2014. We policed 198 traffic crashes. There were 88 criminal arrests made, 15 of those being drunk drivers. And 369 tickets were issued throughout the year. So those are pretty decent numbers, I think. That's about it.
Nothing special over the holidays happened?
No, it's pretty quiet.
I went someplace else, didn't it?
Yeah, everybody was gone, I guess.
I saw that Garfield Township had a smash and break at the Great Wolf Launch. Is that the?
Yeah, in the car.
We're glad you had it, not us. Actually, we hoped nobody had it.
Just encourage everybody to slow down and give yourself extra time when you need to get someplace. The roads are very slick.
Any questions for Officer Chubb?
Just a quick one. What about the thefts that were occurring in Holiday Hills? I think your last report you were maybe on to resolving that.
Yeah, we had a kid that admitted to doing some of that. I think we gotta take another run at it, see if he can give us some more information. This is our little bit.
Anything from the audience for Officer Chubb? He does have a number. You can always call Nancy, has it, to at least leave a message for him if something does come up. He's very responsive to that.
Email too, so
And then email.
try to put that on the website.
So we're glad you're in our midst. He's around a lot. He works odd hours, which is good. He's out. He's in neighborhoods. If you have a neighborhood, you've never seen him, you let me know. He'll be there. Really, we do see him around. You know, that's the important part, to see somebody active. Steve.
He's definitely around and about, because I pulled onto the VGT property and he was right there wanting to know what I was doing. It was on a weekend. It was on a weekend.
That shifty truck you drive, huh? That's important. We all should never be embarrassed of that, because
I
that's
think
why.
he's heard about it.
Okay,
Feel free to say hi.
thank you. Next is County Commissioners Report. We have a new commissioner with us tonight. One of them. We actually have two here tonight, but one's going to give a report.
No, I'm not your commissioner.
She's just in the midst.
I'm Carol Crawford, I'm your new county commissioner. All the new commissioners were sworn in last Friday morning. For the first time ever, right? We have a female chair.
She's the second chair ever, but the first time we've ever had more than one girl on the board. We have three.
Yes.
Ladies.
Yeah, three of us. Okay. I was assigned to the audit committee, of which I am going to be the chair. I'm also assigned to community mental health, economic development. All the commissioners are assigned to ways and means, public health and safety, and resource management and administration. I am the vice chair of resource management and administration. Lisa Croca is the chair for that. There will be other appointments as we go along. Going forward on this Wednesday evening, we're going to discuss the unfunded pension liability, which is a big, somebody said earlier, elephant in the room. That's a big one. And we will talk about our options for that. I am not personally in favor of bonding that out. There's a lot of risk involved in that. So we're going to hear about that on Wednesday. As a group, we are looking for ways to be more efficient, more service-oriented at the county level. Taxpayers are customers, and we need to be good stewards of the taxpayer money. So, and be, as I said, service-oriented. My information is on grandtraverse.org under Board of Commissioners. I don't have my cards yet. As soon as I do, I will make sure that we have a supply here. And feel free to contact me anytime about anything. If I don't answer right away, I will call you right back, because I have a lot of jobs. So I will definitely get right back to you. Anybody?
Anybody from the public have any questions for Carol? I think she does a good job, but
Yes.
Any thoughts on where we're going with the soil erosion inspections?
That's part of looking for ways to be more efficient.
The department head is gonna come up with a structure, a new structure, and that'll be presented to the board probably late of this quarter, I would think.
Thank you.
anybody else? Anybody on the board? We won't be bashful if we have something.
No, please.
Public,
Yeah,
please don't
anything
too,
at all.
because
No,
Carol is
okay.
our voice in those meetings, and she's not this board's voice, she's the public's voice, and that's important that you need to be addressed.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you, we
Thank you.
appreciate it. There is no road commission report to be presented, Bill's not here tonight. I do know tomorrow afternoon, the road commission's gonna talk about the 2015 projects on their list, and I probably will be in that meeting. Don't know what they are yet, so I will hear tomorrow. I have no correspondence to report. There's no public hearing tonight.
Jay,
Yes.
Bob Garvey's letter, that's not been included?
No, I did not include that in the correspondence tonight.
Okay, at some point, I'd like to make a comment regarding that. I
Okay.
don't know if now's the appropriate time, if you want me to do it later.
Yeah, you can do it now, I don't have a problem.
Okay, the board received a letter from Bob Garvey discussing what else, the sediment in the creek. And he went through a number of comments, and then.
Who's Bob Garvey?
He's a property owner down on Deepwater Point.
And
he's
on
got some
Brackett
other-
Road.
On Brackett Road.
He's the one that the barn was moved from the village site to his land at the end of the lot.
So he's not a consultant or an
No,
engineer?
no.
Okay.
But anyway, he sent an email in, like, talking about the creek and his concerns, et cetera, which is fine, absolutely fine. But then he, like some others, has said, we need to do testing of the creek. And we've heard that same thing from other people, and who's doing the testing and why, and setting that all up, et cetera, et cetera. Again, that's fine. The issue I have with his letter, and I've kind of heard this from a couple different people, and I'd like to just get my 2 cents and get on the record on this. He made a comment in talking about testing. He said, I don't think the community would trust anyone hired by the developer. I really think those types of expressions and comments are totally inappropriate. From my take, we're trying to pull this community together from where it was split for the last several years into 2 camps. And in the 2 years I've been on this board, I've seen nothing but positive things being done by the developer in terms of the people he's brought in to address issues, that some were perhaps his own issue that was caused by him, others simply by nature, beyond his control. But I really find it really disheartening to see after all these years, people still having this view of the developer. This is going to be the biggest project in Acme going forward. The people by far in the community are in support of this development. And to keep hanging on to this old issue, we can't trust the developer. Just making a general comment is totally, in my opinion, out of line. If you have some facts, present them. But to make a comment like that, again, from my perspective, is totally inappropriate. I just wanted to make that comment.
If we open it for that, was there anything else from anybody else?
Jay, just a
Yes.
question. Wasn't it a point in the SUP that the developer would need to do water quality
They
testing?
did.
Yeah,
They
so
did.
it was part of an established SUP.
Benchmark was done.
And, so,
And all the requirements for the future monitoring and monitoring work that's being done has been passed on to the developer and their consultant, Horizon Environmental, I think is the name, have looked at that and are working on that effort. So that has
and
been
an
done.
independent third party, Grand Traverse, I'm sorry, I can't recall, but there's a third-party independent lab that
A
actually
lab that looks at,
receives it and does it.
most people collect the data, the lab does
So
the analysis.
I just wanted to factually state what the SUP had and the mechanisms that are in place.
Can I
Okay.
ask Gordon?
Just to be clear, it's the site plan.
Thank you.
Yeah, so since you're concerned with facts.
And you gotta know, there's been a lot of emails going around. So on Bob Garvey's, was this the one when he also recommended that we bring in yet another consultant?
No.
Yes.
Get in,
Yeah, bring another consultant to township.
And I guess,
That was another.
yeah, I mean, I guess I don't think it would matter, honestly. We've got so many consultants here that we're paying. We have John I, we have Chris Grobel, which honestly, Chris Grobel, I think if there was something that was causing issue, I think he'd be the first person jumping up and down to say, you know what, stop, and hasn't done that yet. So I do have the utmost confidence in his abilities and his watching. I mean, obviously he's not out there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, he can't be. But when he's out there, he is doing his job, he is addressing the issues. Horizon Environmental, who is working for them, which is helping them avoid Chris Grobel giving them red flags. You know, I mean, which is good, that's what's supposed to happen. So I guess my only thing is I don't support bringing in yet a sixth consultant, because we've got Gosling Zubak, John I, Chris Grobel, they have Gordy Frazier, Horizon. I mean, bringing in one more is, in my opinion, not gonna solve any more of our issues.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Again, no public hearing, new business. The first item is approval of an ordinance amendment number 33 to section 7.5.6 to add native planning. Carly's going to make the presentation for the planning commission tonight. Thank you, Carly, for coming.
Hi, Carly Wensloff, Chair of the Planning Commission here in Acme. I don't really have anything prepared because I didn't know I was doing this until this afternoon. So basically, I'll tell you the evolution of this really quickly, just so you know. Jim Hefner approached us 6 months ago, I'm rounding, and expressed that he would like to see us incorporate more native plantings in our landscaping ordinance. When we looked at the ordinance, we found that there's not really any language that gives us something kind of to fall back on. So when we're planning and we're interpreting the zoning ordinance, we can only do what the ordinance says we can do. So if there's nothing there relating to it, we can't do anything with it. So with native plantings, this was one of the areas we didn't say anywhere that we support native plantings or we don't want invasive species. So it was a pretty simple fix, we felt like, and so we underwent the process of really just kind of tweaking the existing landscaping ordinance that we have with the help of John I. We added in the intent, which I think Jeff would probably tell me not to say this, but a lot of times the intent is a little bit interpretable, can be interpreted when looking at these site plan reviews. So we did add 5 and 6, the promote the use of native plant materials and discourage the use of invasive plant material. In the planting materials section, which is D, and we kept this all under the landscaping heading, we referenced this, and I believe in your packet I think you got this too, right? Okay, well, I can hand this around, but it's the recommended planting guidelines for municipalities from the Northwest Michigan Invasive Species Network. So this is the guide that we reference within the ordinance. So this is kept up to date by an independent organization referencing invasive species that we're dealing with currently in our area. And there's different classes. Some of the classes you would think, wow, I can't believe that's an invasive. We've chosen to focus more on the more severe classes that you typically hear of, blue strife, what's the one with the automotive, what are the ones with the, you know, anyway, so you all know that.
Transplanted to you.
Sorry, it's been a while since I've looked at this, but so if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Jim has been a great citizen in helping with this too, bringing us materials. I don't know if you'd like to say anything. in regards to this, and the last comment that I'll have for you is this is relating to site plan review for commercial development. With residential development, we realized that was kind of lacking because you don't submit a landscape plan with your house plans when you get a land use permit. So we do have materials that I believe we've decided on which materials we're going to have here at the township hall. So when people come in to get their land use permit from Nikki can provide them with information, like here, this is what we recommend you looking at using for your landscaping to try to stop residents as well from bringing those in. So, Jim, do you have anything to add?
I do. 4050 Bayberry Lane, Jim Hefner and my wife Donna Hagan. And we have landscaped our yard with native landscaping for the most part. And this only affects, as far as the ordinance is concerned, multifamily and commercial development, okay? Single-family residential is not affected, but they also, as we well know, and I'm as guilty as anybody, when I moved into Wintergreen Heights off of Cook Road in Whitewater Township, I bought a wildlife package from the Grand Traverse Soil Conservation District, and I introduced autumn olives to Williamsburg.
Oh, nice.
And you can see autumn olives all over, and I think the official shrub of Acme Township is the autumn olive, okay? And that was one of those things that just drives me crazy, because there are so many, we see a lack of biodiversity in insects, bees, butterflies, birds, trees, shrubs, and so on. And we have these monocultures, you know, that do not provide what we need for our wildlife. And this is a way to address that. And single-family homes are not, it's not affected under the ordinance, but we're recommending that they look at these other options. And there's brochures that are available that they can find suitable native plantings that would take over what they would normally do, okay? So we're not, because if I plant an autumn olive on my land, guess whose land it's gonna be on in the next year or two, you know? It's gonna get carried all the way over. And there are still invasive plants that are being sold locally. And in the Kmart's and maybe the, you know, Home Depots and so on, because they're not invasive in those areas, but they definitely are here. That's all. Thank you.
If you plant autumn olive in your front yard, just to be clear though, Jim will come try to cut it down.
He probably already has. That's good. That's good.
So we did vote on at the December meeting to recommend approval of this, and so if you have any questions, I welcome them.
Go to the board and we'll come back to the audience.
Yes.
Anything from the board?
Oh, yes.
I assume what's in red on this document goes out, that's what's been changed?
Correct.
So that's,
Yep, we incorporated it into the original landscaping ordinance as opposed to having, when it was originally, the first draft we saw, it was a separate new thing, so we brought it in so it's all.
so the wording is promote and discourage versus thou shall not or thou shall.
Yes.
Okay.
So when someone brings in the site plan and we're reviewing the landscaping plan, we don't have to say you can only use these native plantings or, right, but it gives us something to kind of fall back on if Jeff would back me up there, who's the
I think
language
it's also an
expert.
education. There are people that like loosestrife in some parts of the country. Nobody complains about it, but in fact, it's a bad plant.
Right.
And
most
they think
of
it's pretty, you know, and all that.
Most of the landscape architect firms around here that we would see a site plan from do use native plantings, but if you get a firm out of, you know,
Okay.
New York doing something for here, it might have things that are invasive to us but not to them, or vice versa. So that's the idea, is just to have something to reference within the ordinance when reviewing site plans.
Anything else from the board?
I had two questions, but they're not in red. Is that?
You can
okay?
ask them.
Well, in other words, this was
It might be
not a change.
A new can
So
of worms.
just a thought, when I was reading through this, and it's point I and J, it seems to put extra responsibility on the zoning administrator. they approve minor revisions to the landscape plans. I didn't know the zoning administrator would have that knowledge. Would the zoning administrator, Nikki, get a prepared list of what can be substituted for what? So they could do that?
Well, she now would also have this material to reference. The problem with that being, sometimes on the site plan, you would say, let's plant, I'm gonna say like an invasive, Carl Forster grass here, and then they go to do the plantings and they can't get good stock, so they wanna substitute it with a similar tall grass. Well, she can make that approval.
Okay, so she'd have something to work
Yeah,
from.
I got
Okay,
it.
and the same thing on point J, it says that as estimated by the zoning administrator. Do zoning administrators estimate landscaping and irrigation plans, improvement plans? Or am I misinterpreting
This is
that?
for a completion bond. So if you build a building in December and you can't plant anything, but you want to close out your am I, Jeff, correct?
Well, this deals with, you know, for those commercial landscape plans, there's a bond or letter of credit or an escrow account, some form of guarantee provided. And although that does say, I mean, this is the existing ordinance. So this
I realize
isn't a change.
that.
It does say estimated by the zoning administrator. The way it's generally done is the developer provides the work that will be done and the cost estimate by their own contractor. And that's what's used for the
That I'm
the
comfortable
bond.
with. I
Yeah,
just-
it's generally, no, not since I've been around has the zoning administrator said, well, I think it's gonna be about
We ask them to
$200,000.
provide what
No.
Jeff said. If we have this, we say, do you have something from Barker Creek or a local
Yeah.
landscape, what's Tapiana's company name?
Grand Terrace Organics.
Organics, somebody like that, and then when we see that, we know they're pretty, you've got something in front of you to look
No,
at.
I'm very clear on that. I just didn't
No,
want
it's
our
not.
zoning administrator in
No,
the
she doesn't run
capacity
it.
she serves
She
to
just,
do that.
these words probably could be better, but another time, I think, on that,
Yeah.
like, looks at an estimate provided to them.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Okay.
Just to
We're
clarify.
working on our goals next week for the
That could be
upcoming
nice.
year of things to start working on rewriting. So if you have any suggestions, feel free to come Monday night. It'll be
Any
fun.
other from the board? Al, you had a question? So we'll
Yeah,
come back.
I live in a development that's an HOA, we have an architectural committee,
Mhm.
and we can heavily suggest the landscaping. Is there something we can get that you would recommend that we have that's concise, that could it be a little faster next
And
time?
Asking you to receive, huh?
I don't know if we have the one out there. Jim, do you see that one? The colorful one is the one we picked. We'll have something else here at the township hall soon. I was
Okay.
in here talking to Nikki the other day, and we're just waiting on Jim. Jim is helping us get our hands on a
Some documents.
big box of them. So yes, we will.
Okay.
But that's a good place to start. That's the no-no list.
Thank you.
And if the others come out, don't hesitate to call Nikki and say, hey, can you get me that? Where is it available? Come in. Don't, you know, that's,
The Watershed Resource Council, Christine Crossman has a wonderful array of booklets prepared for bay owners and also for regular landscape owners, you know, residential homes. And how to design rain gardens so that we don't get runoffs into the bay and the grades and everything. So, and she's very willing to provide, Nikki told me that we have about 50 permits a year. And there's all sorts of wonderful information right there that
This is the
are
along
easy,
the shore.
understandable.
One. This is Plan Before You Plant. This is the one we really liked. It is colorful and
you like the colors.
it has like the no and this is good. So it's very easy for
Easy to read
consumers.
for guys like me.
Yeah, so the no-no.
It's very well done. And then this is the rain garden one.
And that's something we can get a supply of?
Yes.
Yes.
We
This
give
one
it
is
to
very
people
nice
when they
too.
ask to build a house, we can and stuff.
That should
We
be
would
able
love that.
to become from Nikki, Christine Crossman from the Watershed, the director for the Watershed Center, lives in Elk Rapids. She's willing to drop whatever you need off here at the Acme Township office. No charge. Thank you.
Yeah, these are the ones that we're gonna have.
Any other questions on this from the audience? Michelle?
Michelle Babcock, and I live in Acme. I was at a planning commission meeting not long ago where they had a developer come in front of them and along with his designer and his attorney. And they had been asked if they would have a canopy on their, not just a canopy, but
Awnings.
awnings on their facade. And they said, well, the zoning only suggests that we do. So therefore, we don't feel that we can afford it, nor do we want to do it. And when you suggest, that's all fine and dandy, but maybe if you were to put some percentages in there where a certain percentage would be an option, not an option, I shouldn't say that, but maybe a requirement where some of it should be native. And that way, at least it would take they would notice it. They would have to do something and learn about it, because it might help to educate them too.
No, this language does actually say only native species will be used and no invasives will be allowed from those classes. So it does, yeah, I know, within
The parameters of it?
parameters of the ordinance for commercial
Okay.
or multi.
But if you have suggestions like that, Carly can take them back if you say.
There you go, Carly.
They have to evaluate them, right?
It prohibits the class 1 and class 2. Like if those are on your site plan, we can say straight up, no way, that's not allowed here. Generally, I would say that we don't have a lot of pushback from developers on native landscaping, because a lot of times it's less expensive, there's less maintenance. So I don't think that it's as contentious as doing something like awnings, which costs them more money. It's just bringing it, like, I don't know who just said it, but it's bringing it to their attention more than anything, saying that we would like you to use native plantings. So we do expressly prohibit in the document that I handed that gentleman there, the more severe classes are not allowed on a site plan.
A good comment, thank you.
Jay, one other thing I'd like to comment is Garfield Township, Chuck Corn and Garfield Township have pioneered a native landscaping ordinance. And they've had it for like 5 years or more. I talked to their assistant planner, and he said that all the landscape architects are in tune with it. It's not a problem when they present developments. And they actually, I think, changed it from a recommendation to an ordinance in December. Is that correct, Chuck?
Yeah.
Okay. And the reason I started getting excited about this was in the ticker, it talked about the Horizon development and the 14-screen multiplex. And when the Carmike came in, they needed to make native landscaping, and they actually set up a series of nature trails plus native landscaping.
All part of their approval. Yeah.
So this is not something radical for Grand Traverse County. This is something that's already been proven by Garfield Township.
And many people
A
have
conservative bastion.
Okay. Anything else on the board? Otherwise, I'll bring it back to the board. For a motion to approve, I think would be appropriate.
Motion to approve ordinance amendment number 33, landscaping.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that. Fourth.
Second. Any other discussion?
I just want to make sure that the nice little handout is going to be either an addendum in our ordinance then, so how is that going to be?
It's hard to do because they might change from time to time.
Well,
It's the most current version of that document, so you pull that document from the organization's website. It's readily available.
So Nikki will have it here when we're dealing with the
Nikki
commercial.
can pull it right down off the internet, or she can tell someone on the phone to go to this website and pull it down themselves.
We want to make it as easy
Yes.
as possible for them, so we're not.
You're not chasing your tail trying to find that document.
That's it. Very good. Okay, anything else on the discussion? Otherwise, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign? Thank you. Next item is board of review. Thank you, Carly, for making the presentation to us tonight. Presentation, review recommendation appointments for 2015. The board has a update to that. The package went out with a date of their term ending in 15. No, it's a 2-year term. So I'm bringing to the board a recommendation to reappoint Tony Morrison, Carly, who you just saw tonight, and a new member, Dean Frick, who's volunteered to serve. All terms will go from to 2016, December 31st. So this is my recommendation. I need a motion to approve this.
I'll make
As
that
presented.
motion to approve the reappointment of Tony, Carly, and Dean through December 31st of 2016.
Do I have a second?
I'll support.
Jean. By the way, Dean is actually taking Jim's place. Jim was on it for, what, 2 years? Did an excellent job. We hated him to leave, but he did retire from one job and felt it was important to make a change. Maybe Donna pushed him that way. I don't know. But we did appreciate your service. It was very helpful when we had the board review.
It's a pleasure.
It seems like an unusual thing in the township, but it really has a lot of purpose for the public to be able to come in and talk about their stuff, and for us to have quality people who've looked at it and understand what they're looking at. So, any other questions on that? Otherwise, I'll ask for a roll call. Oh, no. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Passed. Next item, we have a presentation on the Hartman-Hammond Road extension that Mr. Corrin, who is the supervisor of Garfield Township, asked to make a presentation tonight. There is various things in our package to look at from resolutions that I think Garfield had, one that Fife Lake had. There's a document in there from John Nelson, and a document from the, on front of you at the table.
Kimberly Balky.
Judy, yes. So just so you're aware, you have all those there. So, Mr. Corrin.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time this evening. I'm here to ask for your support and a resolution of support for the Hartman-Hammond Bridge. It's been a long, controversial subject. The last time this went around, I was putting kids through college and working and didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it, but I read the paper and knew it was a terrible idea to build a bridge there. Now that I've gotten a little closer and I've talked to people who are traffic planners, environmentalists, and community planners, it's a little different story. There's a lot of misconceptions. There are still people screaming that we're going to push millions of tons of dirt down into the river valley. We are not planning on building a bulldozer bridge like South River. It would be a full span bridge that would respect the environment. We would also like to stop the construction of the Cass Road Bridge. The restoration of the Boardman River as a natural river contradicts building a bridge in the middle of what is basically parkland and natural river area. The natural river was established in the 70s by the state. And I brought a large map in so everybody can see. The dark blue area designates the natural river, and it ends just south of Hammond Road. So right here. That's Hammond Road right here. And this is the natural river area as designated by the DNR in the 70s. So the important consideration here is it was a major victory, and I do believe the original bridge concept was flawed because they did plan on dumping tons of dirt into the valley and then putting a couple of culverts in and calling it good. It was a major victory for our water, our environment, and our community. Some people can't let it go. Building a bridge at Cass Hartman will do nothing to solve our traffic problems. Hartman-Hammond would do a great deal to solve our traffic problems. The state and the federal government both would love to get the highways out of Traverse City. Again, highways have a purpose, and that's to get people from one place to another quickly. Running them through downtown and dividing the city from its most important asset, which is the bay, again, is just environmentally stupid. If we can move the highway off the bay, we could truly engage in the best placemaking that anybody in Michigan has ever seen. One more common misconception. The grand vision does not proscribe building the Hartman-Hammond Bridge. There's nothing in the grand vision that says we shouldn't build a bridge. That's, yes, sir.
Couple of questions. And I kind of came late to this whole fight and wasn't interested. I read about the paper, what was going on, so I really don't have a huge dog in it. But one question I have is, it seems like earmarked, someone's come up with $3 million, I think, some amount of money for this bridge. If it was decided not to build that bridge, but to go forward with the Hartman-Hammond, is that money lost and have to be totally reapplied for?
There is no really clear answer, but from what I understand, we're going to push for a full environmental review on the Cass Road Bridge, and that includes examining all alternatives, as well as the social and economic impacts.
So are you trying to just, at this point, stop the going forward with the construction of the Cass?
We want to go through a full environmental review and review all the alternatives.
And if we approve this document, will that assist in that? Is that what you're attempting to do, is get all of the townships to put a halt to this until additional analysis is done?
Yes, and I think the other thing it will do is it is also supportive of the Hartman-Hammond project. As I said, I think the state and the feds both would like to get 37 and 31 off Division Street and off the bay. But they don't want to get in the middle of a cat fight like they did 12 years ago. So what we're looking for is a consensus. I would like every community in this county to adopt this resolution. And I think it can be done.
Well, in looking at this right now, if they're talking about bypass, 31 heading north, heading south, trying to get to 31 without going through downtown Traverse City,
right.
The Cass Bridge is a non-factor.
Right.
It doesn't play into a bypass at all. So what I think could possibly happen is they go ahead and they build this Cass Bridge, and then several years down the road, a mile to the north, they do the Hartman-Hammond, and we have state funds spending, crossing the river at two locations a mile apart, which would be
Exactly.
absolutely stupid.
And even more important is when we've run the data through the MDOT computers, their traffic modeling, if we do that scenario, build the Cass Road Bridge and then have Hartman-Hammond, 92% of the people who use the Cass Road Bridge would drop down to Hartman-Hammond because it's more convenient. It's a natural location.
In fact, they're coming, I think, I'm on the TC Towers board. I think the data shows they were already coming down Hammond or from the north to go to Cass. And what this report says, they would just not go that far and go across the Hartman-Hammond.
Well, who's the driving, again, I'm not an expert, just looking at the logistics.
Yeah.
If you look at a map and people are trying to traverse from the north to the south, to come down and cross the Cass Bridge, then head north and then come back down south, it makes no sense. Who's pushing it?
There were three groups who wrote in support of building the Cass Road Bridge there. Michigan Land Use Institute, Northern Michigan Environmental Action Council, and the Watershed. Andy Knott was at the Watershed at that time, and he appeared at a public meeting and he made it very clear that the $3 million that the state gave us from the Critical Bridge Fund could be used as a match for the dams project, because it's like
$10, $12 million. And a certain percentage has to come from the local sources. State funds were considered a match. Since that time, we have found out from the Army Corps of Engineers that the bridge has nothing to do with the dam removal and is not considered a match.
Okay.
So now at this point, there's still a match for the bridge, another $500,000 approximately that nobody's come up with yet.
What's the county's position on this?
I think the county is going to take a look at this
It'll
later
be the
this,
last Wednesday of the month, the resolutions will come before the board.
and from conversations I've had, I believe they will approve it as well.
The resolution,
Yes.
or resolution. Could be one.
All three, probably.
Yeah, well, we had three, the statement of non-support for the Cass Road, statement of support for Hardin Hammond, and then a statement for limited access on Hammond Road.
And we have the one from Fife Lake, which I took a model of,
Which kind
kind
of
of
melds the first two
supports
together.
the first two as one.
Right.
Yes. Okay. Is there any questions for Chuck from the public? We allow that, so. Martha?
If you're stopping the restructuring and rebuilding of the Cass Road Bridge, is that bridge just eventually gonna come down? Because from the TC Palace report, it looks like that bridge was found to be not structurally sound in '88.
Right.
So will that bridge just come down completely? Will that become a dead end? What would that become?
Eventually, the idea would be to remove the entire structure and return the river to its natural state. That would be ideal.
The bridge and the dam.
Right. That would be my best.
And then if you're arguing the stance that the bridge at the new Hartman-Hammond crossing is only gonna take up, what is it, a half of an acre for the environmental impact as opposed to the 2.5 acres at the Cass Bridge, what about all of the environmental
I didn't.
impact?
Did I say that?
I read that somewhere. But if that's the case, and if that's the environmental study that they're saying, what about the environmental impact of the road for a mile that right now there is no road connecting all of that? Is that something that will be looked at in the environmental study?
There's still a traffic problem. The primary alternative that's been suggested is a widening of the Bite near Keystone Road, which runs right along the river. And would have to cross the river in the natural area, where there's currently a culvert dam, culvert bridge. So the impacts, I think, in crossing the river at a 90-degree angle are less than running along the river. I think environmentally, it makes no sense to do that.
And that would be something covered in the environmental study?
That would be something covered in the, in the full environmental review.
They're talking $3 million to redo the Cass Bridge,
Right.
is the proposal. Is there any, now, if you were to do the Hartman-Hammond Bridge, not only do you have to do a bridge, but there's a section of road that'll have to be constructed heading east-west.
Right.
Has anybody looked at the total cost of that project? Because acquiring that land or the right-of-way or?
Yeah, the cost is going to be significantly more. But it's not, I don't think it's a deal killer. I think there's a, as I said, there is a will within the Department of Transportation, both state and federal,
To do the bypass.
to do this, and they have.
And
many
nobody's
more
arguing
resources.
that the Cass Bridge would be considered a bypass.
Right.
And that makes, if you look at the map, people come down and back and around, and that's not a bypass, so.
And if you go back to the history of it, it was, they built a dam, and then they paved across the top of the dam. Not because it was a good location for a crossing, but just because all they did was pave the top of the dam.
So, Gina?
Thank you for being here tonight, Chuck. Ahead of the meeting, I went online and I went back to year 2000, and I think even prior to that, and read all the newspaper articles I could find on this subject, because I'm relatively new to the area, 5 years. My head's mush on this, and I'm not sure what you want us to vote on tonight. I'm okay if a study is done from all different angles that's neutral and shows things that maybe none of us have even thought of to date. But I don't feel I know enough from the pro-Cass Bridge people.
That's fair enough. I mean, I understand that. I mean, it's, so they said, when this came around the first time, I was like, there's no way we can build that Hartman Bridge. It's the worst thing on the planet. It got terrible write-ups in the paper. There were marches, there were protests, there were screaming matches. It was a very stubborn road commission who was bound and determined they were going to push dirt down in there, put culverts in and do it. And rightfully so, a group of people who thought it was a terrible idea. But I don't think that's the case now. And the three groups that have publicly supported this Cass Road Bridge are all the same three groups who fought against the Hartman-Hammond Bridge 12 years ago, and they are still beating the drum. And they're still talking about millions of tons of dirt being dumped in the river. Well, they've never seen a new design. So they're not interested in listening. They've got the mind closed and, go ahead.
If you got the county and the majority of the townships supporting the second look, the study,
Yep.
have you got a receptive ear from who? Who do you walk in with these petitions,
Yep.
who do you deliver these to? Let's say the road commission says it's worth a study, the county says, we say, what do you do then?
Well, first, anyway, I would deliver them to MDOT, the Michigan
Okay.
Department of Transportation, to let them know that I feel there's a consensus in our community that we're ready to do it if we do it the right way.
And you're taking lead because it's in Garfield Township?
Right.
Okay. And you're looking for support because we'll be using the roads. Okay.
Yeah, sooner or later, I'm gonna wanna come over here and shop at the new Costco when they open up.
No Costco.
No Costco?
After a Panera Bread comes over.
Rochelle has a question for you.
Hey,
Yes, in asking us to give our vote toward this study, how much is how much is Acme going to end up taxpayer-wise towards this? Does it have any
there's no
bearing?
commitment here for money. It's just,
Nothing.
as I said, my main purpose is to try to build a consensus to demonstrate to the dots, MDOT and the US dot, that the community is interested in taking the highways off the bay and off Division Street. If Hammond Road, I mean, if you drive down Front Street, which is 31 and 37 and 72, and there's a driveway every 60 feet, and people are braking and there's no turn lane, it's not an efficient highway. What we propose is to have a limited access road where there are like traffic lights every mile, and then if you want to get back into the property, you take one of the side roads and then turn back in on an access road. So the idea is, I think the community is supportive if we do it right. And we'd like
So
to
does
do it
that
right.
mean that it also encourages quite a bit more development in that area?
Not necessarily. A great deal of the land in that area is already set aside. I mean, there's industrial parks, again, which have one driveway. There are wetlands that can never be developed. There are a couple of decent-sized properties. Lafreniere property on the corner of Lafreniere and Hammond is probably a third to a half developable. And there's a lot of wetlands there, but there is some developable property. But there's already developments going in across the street. I mean, that's going to happen no matter what. You hear about the affordable housing crisis. It's being answered. I mean, people are coming out and building. We've got probably 600-700 new dwellings coming to Garfield in the next couple of years.
Will this include looking at improving 4 Mile? Because if you're looking at this as a bypass, you have to get them to Hammond Road somehow off of 31.
Right.
Is 4 Mile the way you'd route them up there?
Possibly. Again, I'm not a traffic planner.
That wasn't the original view
Yeah.
of that, yes. There also is a view of.
You have to have a total comprehensive.
3 Mile at one point was.
Is it 3 Mile or?
4 Mile was.
Well, 4 Mile I think would be better.
There also is, on the TC Taos, the technical committee on roads that I sit on, and Chuck does too. We also talked about a connection between Airport Highway, 3 Mile to 4 Mile, and 4 Mile to 5 Mile. I'm not a big proponent of 5 Mile, because I think it dumps traffic, in some cases, the wrong place, on a very curvy, hilly road. But the 3 to 4 Mile would be a big change, and then improving 4 Mile all the way up to Hammond would really, and a lot of trucks do that today. You see a lot of trucks in the summertime, especially in construction, going around 31, up 4 Mile, down Hammond, to get where they want to go.
Do we have a resolution?
Yeah, I'm gonna get some more questions.
No, I mean, I'm just saying, do we have one?
Well, here's what I'm gonna hand out. We handed out one from Fife Lake.
Right.
We handed out one that Chuck brought from Garfield. I took the Fife Lake and updated it just this afternoon to make it an Acme Township resolution.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll hand that out to look at, and we'll take some other questions while you're looking at that, so.
What I remember about that Hartman Hammond was that it was a 4-barrel shotgun headed towards the Vasa Trail, because the extension was through the state forest, and the Vasa was going to be going through a culvert, and it was going to come out in Bates and then head up to Elk Rapids, okay, and that direction. And it was a complete bypass around. It started at Bates and went down.
You still have like what they call the 6 Mile Road?
Yep,
remember
6
that?
Mile Road.
Yes.
In fact, when I actually took the plans to the Vasa that I had to the residents in Bartlett Road, there was this big road that said 6 Mile, and it went right behind the houses on Bartlett Road. And the people had me lined up against the car about that. So I think that needs to be addressed too, is where, if you're gonna have this, Hartman-Hammond corridor, then where does it go north, okay? Does it come down 3 Mile, 4 Mile, 5 Mile, or does it go out to Bates?
I will tell you this, Jim, the Taos Committee has not talked about anything out to Bates at this time. We know we gotta take some steps to probably, like I say, 3 to 4 Mile, 4 maybe to 5,
We're very confined along the bay.
We're still back to the bay. There will be someday we'll have to look at that issue, where that goes east, wherever that is, if it does. There's some feeling that you won't have as much traffic going for the need of that as some development happens in this township. And that cuts some traffic down. But I'm sure at some point, but we have not got there is it the 2035 view, does not even have that in our view up to 2035.
That's a logical step.
Yes,
there is a process, and I think you can go on to the Grand Vision website, and you can look at they call it the NEPA process, which is a National Environmental Protection Act review, which describes the entire process from full transparency, citizen involvement, to weighing the social costs, the environmental costs. The process that's in place now, I think it's pretty impressive. I mean, if you get a chance to check it out, it's on the Grand Vision website, and it's the NEPA, NEPA process.
Paul, you had a question?
Yeah, I got 2 or 3 questions. First off, when this was first proposed years ago, Hartman-Hammond was virtually a road. Now there's a subdivision. You talk about your driveways off from 31 and the bay there. You got the same thing on Hartman-Hammond. So now you got to, if you're going to do what you're saying, you're gonna have to make that 4-lane from 31. Okay, you got that hill there, which you got 2 or 3 businesses on. You know, I think you better come up with a cost on this before you, because you're talking, you know, first off, you gotta go 4-lane.
Right.
From 31.
Yes.
And your cost is gonna be astronomical.
They also would be, Paul, they're very high if you improve Biden the same way. And make
Oh,
it
yes.
more like, either one has a cost to it, that's all.
Yes,
Neither
but
one.
your cost on this one is gonna be astronomical, and, you know,
But again, the people we'd be talking about paying for it would be the federal.
I understand that, but
Yeah.
it still comes out of taxes.
Correct.
I don't care who pays for it, it still comes out of taxes.
Absolutely.
Why would you, you're right.
Whatever time we give it, it's the same pocketbook.
It's the same
All right.
pockets.
Right?
I have another.
But again, see, the environmental side of it is, there are people idling in traffic every day burning gas. And that's money.
We have a question for Tom.
Just quick, I lost that. What's the current target date for action or work to be done on the Cass Road Bridge / dam?
Their intention is to do it this year, but they don't have the match, and they haven't completed the NEPA process yet. So it is highly unlikely it will happen this year.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Shirley?
My concern is that we're hearing your side of the story, and there's organizations who don't agree with this, and I think it's not right for our Board of Trustees to make a decision based on one side of the story. And I was around when, not when Acme was created, but I was around. Not that long. Not that long. But I was around with the whole business going on, and actually my husband was on the board of NIMIAC at the time of all that controversy, and as you say, it was extremely passionate situation.
It was a bad plan.
It was a bad plan,
Yeah.
and I think that there are issues with trusting what's going to happen. And then, like Bob said, going through the Vasa Trail. I mean, if this bypass is built, people are going to go, okay, just like some people said, where is this going to go? And one of my understandings of the connecting between 3 and 4 Mile is that's heavy-duty wetlands all through there. And that's why it hasn't been built up so far, is because of the nature of the property. So, quick summary is I don't think it's right for you guys to vote tonight till you talk to the other side. And I think you have to think about the longer term implications. I don't know. I mean, I read over why you say that this should happen, and maybe it should. I don't know, but I want to hear what the other people have to say first.
Certainly, John Nelson, who was, I call a proponent of building Cass, did provide a document in the board package, it's on our website.
Yeah, I read that.
Okay, so he did provide that, yes,
Yeah.
and they were aware of the meeting tonight. I appreciate the comment.
Am I missing something, or are you requesting that they endorse doing a study?
I'm requesting that they endorse being supportive of the Harbin-Hammond Bridge. It doesn't, I mean, it is if we can get to a consensus on this, then it's something that's at least on the table. It is right now a part of our TC Talus long-range plan. It's part of Garfield Township's long-range plan. It's part of the Road Commission's long-range plan. It is, if it can be done right, I think it would be a tremendous asset to the community. Just this, like I said, the simple fact that you could take the highway off the bay.
Jean?
Chuck, you know, that I read through the resolution which Jay handed out, and there's nothing in here about a study.
That's, the study will be probably there just from Garfield's resolution, because once it's a controversial subject, then it requires a full environmental process.
And I guess personally, you know, because I don't feel I have all the information, as I mentioned earlier, but I could see adding a few words the last line for the public, it says, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of Acme Township, Grand Traverse County expresses its support for the construction of a Boardman River crossing at the Hartman-Hammond location in lieu of the Cass Road location as currently contemplated by the Boardman River Dam's implementation team, period. But what I would recommend perhaps for consideration is to just add, if a study determines this to be the most, the best solution, whatever, or something.
It should be in there, but it does go without saying, because something like this would require a long study, a long NEPA process. And it will be done.
This is a resolution, as Chuck said, of support. It doesn't mean it's going to be done because we ask it. Because the process to build a bridge of any kind, any of these roads, is a long study process.
We still have a lot of roads to walk.
This is not.
Oh, I know, I just feel that it looks kind of like a blanket endorsement here without those.
Yes.
Just, and those words could make it right.
I agree, if there's a lot more to this. This is just to get a set of direction. My take is, and so why I would support this is, A, do I believe there's a need for a bypass? And if you believe that, okay, yep, check that box off. Does the Cass Road Bridge play into that? The answer is absolutely, unequivocally not. If you've ever driven that road, it makes no sense. Nobody can convince me that that would be a part of a bypass. You say, okay, if that's not the case, I can't imagine why, you talk about taxpayer money, why we'd spend money to build a bridge at Cass Road, and then a mile to the north, build another one somewhere down the road at Hammond Road, which is the logical place to build it. So just on those three little, and I don't know where I'm wrong on that.
And there's no reason you couldn't amend this at this point and add the words you want to add.
This is amendment. That's why we give you this to look at.
Yeah.
If you want to give me some words, we can put in here.
Sure, but let me just throw something crazy and wild out there, okay? I mean, maybe this study would show, hey, let's just repair the Cass Bridge and turn it into a bike route or something that makes it feasible that way. And there might be some other things out there. I'm making this up right now, out of my ear or whatever.
No, I understand.
But
No, a study could come with
all I'm
results.
saying is a study may come up with answers and creativity and maybe make it even a better regional plus. Okay, that's it. Okay, wording. Contemplated by the Boardman River Dams. Okay, let me think this through.
Acme also supports a study of this.
Okay, just a second, let me back up to it.
You looking at the last paragraph?
Yes.
If, I guess, Jeff, if a, what kind of study do you want to call it?
National Environmental Protection Act.
If-
So that's what's required.
A national,
A NEPA. We just say NEPA.
NEPA? I don't know these things. If a multifaceted NEPA study fully endorses or fully supports, help me folks, help me Jeff.
I was going to say Acme also supports a NEPA study before implementation of this.
I would
Aviva
say,
project.
I would just say if, because if the study shows it, personally, I'm okay. If the study doesn't show it, that doesn't mean, well, oh, we're still gonna go.
So what do you want to change from what I said?
Just start instead of right after teen, and where it says teen period, if, Jeff? If a multifaceted NEPA study, for whatever it's called, fully supports this vision.
Here's what I have written based on what I was hearing you say. That the Board of Trustees of Acme Township, Grand Traverse County expresses its support for the construction of a Boardman River crossing at the Hartman-Hammond location in lieu of the Cass Road location as currently contemplated by the Boardman River Dams implementation team, comma, if a complete NEPA and traffic study concludes that to be the best alternative.
Thank you.
I support it.
Thank you.
I make that motion.
Thanks for your patience, everybody.
Thank you for your support.
I've got it here, so it'll go to Nancy. Yeah, I wrote it here, so.
It's tricky.
Okay, so we don't,
What's the resolution number?
number one,
Oh,
2015, number one, first of the year. So, do I have a motion to support this as amended with the language? That's fine, that's why we do these, we amend it.
I'll make a motion to support resolution 2015 with the modification as presented by council.
Support.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Thank you for spending
Thanks,
some
Ted.
time with us.
Thank you very much.
And I think that adding that piece is very important because it says we are in support of looking at it and understanding with fact, not just emotion.
Yeah.
Thank you. The next item is item 4, possible changes to Acme FOIA procedures, both Gordy and Kathy. So I don't know who's going to start this presentation. Gordy, you had some comments. Kathy has some notes, so
Okay.
we'll go together.
I guess what prompted me to look into this is kind of some of the FOIAs that have been coming in recently, which we've all been made aware of. I looked at our FOIA procedure and thought it was a little light in descriptive terms. So I looked at a few, Traverse City and a few other locations to see what their procedure looked like and came up with a new FOIA procedure. I thought it was more detailed for both the person making the FOIA request would know exactly what they'd be looking at, and also for us, what the requirements are. And just as I completed that, I find out that the legislature, both houses have approved a significant upgrade to this. It'll go before the governor, and I suspect he's going to approve it. So I quickly modified it, assuming that the new proposed legislation will in fact go into law. And that's what the document is in front of you. And I passed it by Jeff, but I didn't want him to spend a ton of time looking at it. My thought is I presented to the board as kind of a straw man before you get into the actual legalese of it, to see what your thoughts are of having something. And when you look at the law, we really need to get this published on our website and really increase the documentation on the subject. The new statute, the changes to it was to, in more support of the citizens in making FOIA requests. Apparently, some locales were really stonewalling and putting exorbitantly high costs on it, so the legislation pretty much puts limits on what can be charged and what the guidelines are, and puts more emphasis on the township in being responsive in the whole process, doing documentation, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that being said, if you actually read the statute, it's pretty, I think, pretty cumbersome. But the problem is when you read it, they write a statute that the city of Detroit or Grand Rapids adheres to, where they have huge staffs. And you have some townships with, 500 residents that have to adhere to the same statute. So whatever we do, we need to document better our procedure and make sure we're not spend more time in adhering to it, because there's various penalties if you don't comply, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not as simple as somebody coming in and saying, hey, I want this document. It's much more procedural.
Yeah,
So anyway, this is what this document is. The biggest change in here, from what we've been doing, is the cost. The statute does allow you to put fully burdened cost of the individual performing the research, et cetera, complying with the FOIA request. So I went through where you'd be able to come up with a document, which I've attached, which would show somebody, here's the hourly rate that we'll charge should the treasurer have to get involved, the clerk get involved in it, the supervisor get involved in it, or the administrative assistant. So,
I was gonna mention, the new bill is called House Bill 4001, so if anybody wants to look at it, it is on the governor's desk, as I saw an email on it today. It does have another nice feature, I think, for our citizens and us, that allows FOIAs to be answered, that the data is available on the website, so people can get it from the website, where it's available. We have to assure that it's available, but it's one that's there. And, I mean, we even have costs when you do a FOIA, for the lawyer sometimes to look at it. Because of the data you have and make sure it's complete, we want to provide their data, nothing we're trying to hide. And if there is data you need to keep out because you have, let's say you're under litigation, that you have to identify appropriately. And there's cost to that. That's allowed to be transferred to the people asking for the information in the new law. So, I don't, Kathy, you had some points. Does that kind of match where you're at on that?
It does, it matches where I'm at. I know on this particular document itself, I was looking over the good faith deposit, little things like that. Like right now, we already charge $50 if the FOIA exceeds $50. There's a request to have 50% to proceed with the FOIA.
you know, I think it's the new law up to $100 now.
Is the new law 100?
I don't know,
Okay.
I'll look at this in a few days as I put it together. But anyway, I guess we'd want to, if we're in agreement with the concept, then I guess, I wouldn't have any concern if we were to look at the statute, if Jeff were to look at the statute and say, yes, this complies, even though it isn't law, the statute's more stringent, so I don't think we'd have any problem implementing this prior to the governor signing this whenever he does it.
I don't think it'll be long, to be honest with you.
Pardon me?
I don't think it'll be long. This was passed
Right.
late session, so
But
probably
again,
fairly soon.
it's all written in favor of the citizens, so.
Well, my thought is, we've got your document, we've got some notes from Kathy, and we've got the new bill. I think from those, we ought to be able to take and write a document that Jeff then can look at based on that, bring it back to us to look at. I think by the time he brings it back to us, it'll probably be signed. If not, we then could take a path like you suggested. I don't know what others.
Has everybody looked at this? This is kind of a conglomerate between several different townships. I talked to Carter City and theirs, and it's kind of in the middle someplace.
I appreciate all your research.
You haven't seen a problem with that?
No, I have not looked at it in any depth at all yet.
The new bill or this, either or?
I've glanced at the new bill and I've glanced at the total policy.
Is there any way to help on this when we have the information on our website, rather than us having to recreate or print it or whatever? That's assuming they're an internet person or, you know what I mean, somebody that uses that type of mechanism, that we can just say, here's the link.
Well, the first thing is when you get a FOIA, you can say to the FOIA-er that you have, that this is on the website. Just go here if you'd like to get it.
Perfect.
And they have the option of saying, thank you. Or they can say, no, I would prefer paper copies. There are times when people like me ask for a FOIA because we want the official, actual, what the township believes to be the complete response to my request. And so, you know, we may say, no, that's not sufficient, we want this. But yeah, so I mean, that's always an option. It's always an option.
And it is
It's always an option to say,
that
when someone submits a FOIA for a single document, to say, you know what, hold on, let me go get it and make a copy of it for you. That's always an option too, you know.
In the new bill.
The new bill does have that feature in it. It makes that an allowable way to do it. Have to tell them where at, you know, go to, like an instruction,
What
but that's
section are
fine.
you looking at? It may be,
I just,
Oh, that's a description.
Yeah, I don't have the actual bill.
It's-
Yeah. But I think it's important that we understand that. It does help a lot. And a lot of people, like you say, would be glad if they know where to just go get it. Sometimes you have to point out to them, but that's all. I mean, it's a lot easier for everybody, the person one and us to process. There is, I mean, people don't realize how much tremendous cost there is in some lawyers we get for, they want 3 words, go find any document for 3 years for 3 words in it. And you gotta pull the data. We have a process, we do that with our software people, so we don't do it, they do it kind of with the parameter. We don't do it individually, we look through it, we go through the whole thing. We have to have, like I say, review. You have to make sure, if you pull it on certain things, it could include every project we did that had a blacktop drive. Let's use that as an example. So I did this one, oh, it's a blacktop drive, this one. But they really wanted about a blacktop drive, a certain property. So you have to sort that out, but at least it takes time. The present, and I believe the future way to bill is at the lowest cost for the labor, no matter what. If I do the work, I have to bill at Nancy's labor rate.
That's not true.
Isn't
It's
it?
not true.
I thought it was the lowest.
That's able to do it.
That's able to do it. Okay, I'm sorry. That's a good way to say it. Yeah.
So if it comes in and it requires research into engineering drawings, et cetera,
That's a little different.
you're probably the,
Could be the one to do it or somebody.
yeah,
like
exactly. Or on emails, if we're gonna charge from our provider, if they're involved doing this research,
And they charge it.
they charge, now you can charge their hourly rate up to 6 times and that, up to 6 times the current minimum wage rate. So I think I spelled it out in here.
Yep.
Okay, so is everybody all right with, I don't know if we need a motion to do that. I think we can allow Jeff to do that if we're fine with that. Consensus? Okay. Thank you. Next item is item 5, resolution change to burial service contract. Kathy?
Has everyone had a chance to read this then?
Let's explain to the public why we're doing it.
Oh,
first.
Burial services?
Yeah,
Right,
just so they know
I'll
why.
Okay.
Briefly.
All right. We, back in, what was that, October? Boswick was doing our cemetery opening and closing. He no longer will do that. He informed me that he would no longer do them because his equipment was not able to perform the job. So I've researched and gave some calls and found that this Mark Blackmore.
Blackmore Property Management.
Right, Blackmore Property Management would be able to perform this service. So this resolution is about going and asking them to do our services. And we're also going to change, I'll just read this instead of stumbling through it, okay? Blackmore Property Management has the equipment to open and close the grave sites, and Acme Township would not need to provide them any equipment with the exception of the wooden forms used to hold the openings of the grave site intact till the vault is placed. Acme Township will make the wooden forms used to hold the opening of grave site available to Blackmore Property Management for their use when needed. Now, I do have a correction in the next sentence where I would take the word out attached. Okay, whereas the Acme Township clerk recommends that the contract with Blackmore Property Management approved. So I'm asking to go into a contract with them. Then whereas the Acme Township clerk recommends that all billing for the opening and closing of grave sites be done in the following manner. Families of the deceased will pay the funeral home for all burial fees. Funeral home will pay Acme Township the cost of all burial fees. Acme Township clerk will pay the contracted sexton for opening and closing grave sites. Note, in cases where families are not utilizing a funeral home for burials, the families will pay Acme Township for all burial costs. Acme Township clerk will pay the contracted sexton for opening and closing grave sites. Whereas the opening and closing fee schedule will not change. And now therefore be it resolved that the Acme Township Board of Trustees resolve that the above contract with Blackmore Property Maintenance to open and close gravesite for the burial of a full-size casket and cremation burials in Acme and Neva cemeteries is approved. The Acme Township Board of Trustees approves the payment for the opening and closing of grave sites in both cemeteries as described above.
Question as you read that.
Sure.
One place we call it Blackmore Property Management, and in other places we call it Blackmore Property Maintenance. Which one is it? Just for consistency.
You know, I would have to check the workman's comp,
Okay.
just to make sure I get the correct
That's
one.
fine. We just ought to correct it, if we're gonna approve it, we ought to correct it, that with the common name of the company
Oh,
in
yeah,
all,
I did
in all
notice
portions,
that.
yes.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention.
This is unfortunate. Mr. Boswick actually owns a cemetery in Garfield Township. I don't remember the name of it. You might, Chuck, right across from the office here? Yeah. What's it? Memorial Gardens. He does this for a lot of townships. He's stopped doing it in other townships too. We were left without, actually had a funeral performed for somebody, a burial. Did not have anybody, had a contractor that helped us out to make that happen. And that's why we're doing this. So
Where did you see where that it was?
down here we have.
Oh, I see.
Under your last result. So we just need to look through that on that. It's important because it's a document that's going to be described, obviously, the same company's name, whatever that official name is.
Sure.
Is their address Coral Lane?
I don't have I don't have my.
We can change that later.
I think it's maintenance.
Is it? I thought it might be too.
Blackmore Property Maintenance, but it showed good search.
Okay, anybody, I make a motion to approve this as presented with the corrections on the name.
Second.
And the correction in the middle of taking the attached contract off of
Second that too.
it. Thank you. Okay, I made the motion, Gordy second. Any other questions? All in favor? I don't think we need a roll call on this, do we, Jeff? Even though we're talking about billing and part of it?
No.
I don't think so.
You're not spending money.
We're not spending, we're just procedurally resolving it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. Thank you. Next item is the county road issue on the SAD district. We had approved money to work on the SAD district out of our funds that were put aside for that. The county normally has a contract with people and they work with them. But, so they're asking for us to sign a contract with the county, agreement that we will provide the funds for the engineering cost on this project. Pretty boilerplate kind of thing we do with the road commission. Only thing we do is similar to what we had done before on some stuff. So we need your approval as a board for myself and Kathy to sign that. It's not finalized till the board, the road commission signs it also. It's not a resolution, it's just a need a motion.
Motion to approve the agreement to fund design costs with the road commission pending your Kathy's signature.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Roll call?
Oh, we are, I guess we should, yes. Let's do a roll call, because there is money being spent in the end, that's right.
Chenema,
Yes.
LaPointe,
Yep.
Solinger,
Yes.
Ackerman,
Yes.
Dye,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Old business. We passed a motion at the last board meeting to set our board meetings, dates, and later realized we should have done that by a resolution. So there's a resolution in front of you just to officially firm up what we did in the last meeting on the dates. So I just need a motion to accept this resolution as presented. It's the same dates as we had in our previous meeting, just resolution format, that's all. It would be resolution -2. Three. Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution -3.
Second.
Second by Joanna. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Same, opposed, same sign. Okay. Status, item 2 is status on Sailor Park boat launch, funds on hand and grants applied for. Ackerman and myself will do a little of this. Gene will start out with the funds. I'll talk about a little bit about where we're at.
Okay. I'm going to give the Reader's Digest version on this, and then you ask questions just for, I have a lot of info here, but I'm not going to go through it all. Okay, just to recap for the audience, the total project cost estimate for the boat launch at Sailor Park is $188,895. We were successful in applying for the DNR Waterways Grant Award, which is 50% of that, or $94,447, with Acme's Township match of $94,448. Of this $94,448, Acme has in hand or has been awarded $74,072.68, which leaves a delta of $20,375.32. That still needs to be raised. Okay?
Gene, the 74,000 came out of the general fund, right?
I'm going to cover exactly where that is
I
from.
mean, originally you said that some other grant, that 74K, that came out of the general fund from some time ago.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm going to get into it right now. I'll go into that. So the $74,072.68 breaks down as follows. $61,000, and Jay, correct me if I'm wrong here, was held aside for a new boat launch by previous Acme board.
Right.
Okay, so it just held.
It's on Amy's report. Financial report.
And Sarah gave me a breakdown today. $6,072.68 has come in during 2014 in individual donations. She did a great job for me in itemizing that. We were awarded in August of 2014 $7,000 for the 2% tribal grant. That's $74,072.68. So there again, the delta of $20,375.32. So, asked to give the status of the dollars, but also I wanted to go in a little bit about fundraising and grant writing. And I've been doing this for a few years, but I'm not a professional at it. So I'm learning as I go, but because of that, I think I'd probably dig deeper and research more because I don't take anything for granted. No pun intended. So, the people who run grant programs, and I speak to them on the phone, and they cannot tell me enough how they appreciate the phone call, they appreciate somebody diving into this. A successful grant writing is not simply filling out an application and mailing it for receipt by a deadline. It's not a tactic. People need to do their homework, and it's a process. So I wanted to cover just a little bit of this, and then I wanted to talk about Acme's specific strategy for the boat launch, and then give you the breakdown of the grants that I'm going to hit and why. So the process includes, frankly, researching each grant to see if its goals and objectives fit with your project. If they don't, you don't take the time to apply for it. You have to look carefully at the criteria, and you have to evaluate how your project stacks up. Does it stack up? You have to look at the total application package, what needs to be done and by when. Is it realistic? Can you do this? We're short-staffed here. We have to be very realistic in what we can accomplish. You organize all your questions, you contact the agency, you ask the questions, you get the answers. If this seems like you can meet the requirements, you build a relationship with that person and others in the organization, and that relationship is very important. You don't have the relationship, don't count on getting the grant award. You identify partners, ask for their interest, and secure a commitment for letters of support. Very important, and gentlemen last week at DEQ was emphasizing this too. You draft the application, you develop the budget, you collect the letters of support. If allowed, you submit the application early for preview by the agency to assess if everything is in order. I did this with the DNR Waterways grant. You don't want to hear later, after the deadline, that you missed something. You want to get it in a few weeks early, give them plenty of time to look at it if they offer this, and then have more confidence in your submittal. Finalize text, get it in at least 3 days ahead of time, not the day of. Organizations have said they struggle with that, and things are messy, and they've made it in under the wire, and they can't even read the application. If awarded the grant, you have to ensure complete understanding of how the agency wants expenses databased and detailed for accounting purposes. This is really important. If it's done incorrectly, you will not be reimbursed for certain work that was done, and that's a real ouch, and rules are rules here. So, what is Acme's specific strategy for our boat launch project? And I'm leading this with members of Parks and Rec Advisory. We're going to identify and seek out local grant awards that support public recreation on our Great Lakes. We're going to apply for more than the needed $20,000+ There are no guarantees for success. And frankly, I have $142,000 worth of grants identified, okay? We're going to go way beyond because I was naive to think that, it would have all been paid for by now, so I learned. I'm going to go over now. We're going to build strategic relationships with the agency contacts who can provide the input and guidance. I've already started that. And then we're going to make a bulletproof case for why this boat launch is needed in our community and region. I've been reading a few books on this. You get money if you create and promote a big idea. If you just say give to Acme Township Parks, but what's your big idea and how do you know it's wanted, okay? The big idea, showcase it as the best big idea to financially support because of its wide appeal. Obtain individualized letters of support from fishermen and families. And somebody from the DEQ said, not form letters from government officials who don't live in the area or whatever. Make it relevant and make these unique stories from people who support this project. So I have a plan for doing that. Write a solid application that hits all the right points, nothing more, nothing less. Continue to build relationships. If not awarded the grant, find out why and try again if the fit is confirmed. And if awarded the grant, great, but be sure to follow every accounting requirement to the letter. Okay, now I'll just highlight the grants. We applied with the December 31st, 2014 deadline, 2% tribal grant. Again, this time, and I asked for Jay's input on this. I thought, well, gosh, should we go for, they gave us 7. Should I ask for 7? Jay said, no, ask for 32,000. And that was good because the last time we asked for 39,000, I think. They gave us 7. So, I asked for 32. I'm learning. Great Lakes Fisheries Trust, they are not local, but they obviously care about the fishing industry. I have written them. You don't get a person when you call, and that's okay because places are shorthanded. I've written them and asked them to set up a phone meeting with me so I can assess fit. I didn't say that, but I just want to kind of speak with them. I have a feeling we're a great fit. They don't have a deadline, and I want to go for 25,000 there. But if in the phone call, I can maybe go for a little more, I will change that. And I'll bring it to the board for approval before I submit any of these things. I'm not a rebel there. Haggerty supported Traverse City with a fishing project. If I recall, 80,000, but I may not have that accurate. But you have to have an education component to what you are doing with Haggerty. So I have to assess that fit and call them. I'm not just going to read about it, I'm going to call them because they may tell you more than what you can read online. Next, Olson Foundation grant. Olson Foundation, I've done reading on that and looked, they have given quite a bit to the Y, if I understand correctly, the new Y. They really care about public projects that benefit recreation and just outside entertainment for a community. I think it's a terrific fit there. The submittal deadline is April 1st of 2015, 25,000. If I speak with them and they sound really interested, I may take that up. Rotary. If we have an Acme Rotary leader who can be a champion, this would be good. 10,000. Okay? I think they would enjoy supporting something like this if we have a champion. Okay? We just don't want to write a letter to them. The 2% tribal grant with a submittal deadline of June 30th, 2015, again, and by this time I thought I could take it down to 25,000. Okay, there's some logic there. And this is the best cycle. They have 2 cycles for grants. This is the cycle ending June 30th, is the one that's the better fit for the boat launch, but I'm not going to be shy in asking for it twice a year.
Well, the summer cycle for 2% happens to be their biggest dollar, bucket of bucks, if you want to call it that, versus the winter.
And last year, we were honored, as I mentioned, to get 7,000. The competition was really, really stiff, so we appreciate everything that we receive. The competition was rough. 142,000 total, okay? So, let me just end by saying there were 2 grants on my list when I did the original strategy in September. And upon investigating and phone calls, they weren't a fit. And I just wanted to explain, the Recreation Passport Grant is a DNR grant for park hardscapes, predominantly like playground hardscapes, things in parks. It is not for boat launches. And the DNR is careful to have specific grants for this and specific grants for that. And it would have been very awkward had we done this because DNR would have said, hey, you know, we gave you a waterways grant. But anyway, the learning is, the recommendation is that this grant, I think, should be considered for Bayside Park improvements. And we should not be shy to apply for this grant for another use for our park, okay? The second one, and this concludes the information I have to provide you tonight, Coastal Zone Management Grant. A few people thought, hey, this would be really great. It's a DEQ grant for construction. They have several grants throughout the years. There's one coming up in a few days that's for acquisition of property. The December 31st, 2014 deadline was for projects, construction projects. It would have fit, but the deal breaker was that you cannot start your project until after October 1st of 2015. And they said, hey, you know, because we have a goal of getting this constructed this summer, if we can. And they said, we can't give you money for a project that would possibly be already underway. However, they suggested that we consider this grant for the Bunker Hill kayak launch, if we can chunk that into projects and possibly identify one project. They award up to $100,000. Also, the neat thing with this grant is that in-kind donations of labor can be used as part of the match. So that's a neat thing to find out. So that's where we're at. And any questions?
After Jay gives us an update on where we stand with actually getting it done this summer, then I come back to the funding of it. I have some questions on that. So.
Okay.
Okay. We're on target right now to have a full developed construction bid package done by the end of February. Out to bid, if everything's fine, early March, bid letting by April. Actual bid letting by April. Now, to get to this point, during December, we actually had to do additional soil samples on the bottomlands at where the launch will be. They passed the kind of test it needs to do on the soil samples, but it's just a requirement. They were never done on the previous work done by in 08. We had to we're putting things into CAD, new topology. We did the survey, if you remember right, in our last meeting with the Kane property plus the rest of the park. That's been completed. The weather held up for us there. So that's all going on by Gosling and Schubeck at this point in time. And they're going to meet with the Parks and Recs Committee as soon as they tell us when their next meeting is. He'll come to that meeting, and they have not given us that date yet. And so they can go look at everything, make sure everything looks right. We'll then develop a layout in a CAD base with a topographical survey, I'm sorry, and the original kind of construction design. And from that gets us on, keeps us on target to get that bid out and get it ready. So I think we're making good progress. There was always, when you do a project like this, it started in 08 and now you're doing it in 2015, there's things that weren't done and things that weren't done originally because they ran out of money. So now we're doing those things, and I think it's good. I think we had to do some soil sample surveys in the parking area as one example, because it's in an area of the park, there's a lot of trees, we've got to do that at a certain time. and we don't want to get caught with tree removal the wrong time of year. There's a, I think it's called Indiana bat, I think that's what it is. Maybe some of you have read about it, that you can't now on certain areas cut the trees down in the summer because the bats are in the trees. I don't know whether they go in the winter, but I really don't have a clue. But it's important it comes up on bid letting on the road projects now. It's a new state thing that they've adopted. So you have to watch those kind of things when you do this. So that's where we're at, Gordy, on the timeline.
Still gravel parking lot?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I guess my question is, you know, based upon the dates you come up with, we could start this project in a May, June timeframe.
Yes.
If none of these grants come in, or we're awarded the cash prior to May, and we actually go ahead, here's help me with this. We put up for a grant request to build a boat launch. And lo and behold, by the time they're about to make their award, we've built the thing already, it's done. Do they then pull, is the grant request then pulled, or do they go ahead and just give us the money anyway? How does that work? It'd be nice if we had all the money in hand with a firm, here's a quote, then we said, okay, we build it to that amount. How does that, because it doesn't sound like we're gonna get any of these awards prior to May. Or I don't know, you didn't.
The 2% grant that's in today for the tribe,
Is
we
that
should know
when
by
it-
February.
Okay.
Yeah.
And some of these others do not have dates to them. It's a continuous process. You go speak to them, and if they like you, they can sit down and write a check. Other ones are April 1st. I wasn't under the impression that we could start building it as early as June, though.
Oh, yeah.
We could.
That's
Okay.
our target, we're trying to keep.
So,
As if we don't
I'm
have
not
to
looking
get
for
it
the
done.
answer, but just
Yeah.
somehow in your thinking, how do you handle
Well, I think, let me offer this for you, Gene. We, as a board, put up the additional money, I believe, that we didn't have in the grants. Isn't that, am I?
Yeah, it was
right?
appropriated.
Appropriated.
Because the DNR has the township
We had to
sign
show them we had the money.
61 and 23. The original 61,000 that
Which-
the previous board.
That was, yeah, I'm just talking about the
And the
latest.
23.
Right, that 23. 61 was already in there, so let's
Wait a
call
minute.
that available.
Back up. Before we fully can reach agreement with the DNR and have a signed agreement, we have to, as a board, appropriate the matching
We did it
funds,
already.
which we did.
Yeah.
And that was done in
Right.
June 12th of 2014. The board voted to adopt a resolution relative to the agreement, blah, 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 to appropriate the sum of $94,448. What I did then, because I knew that the board didn't necessarily, the intent wasn't for all that to just go for the boat launch, I came back then on October 7th and said, why don't you give me a loan for the delta of $26,948, and I'll work with the Parks and Rec to pay it back within 34
And
months.
that's how the resolution reads.
Yeah.
As a loan, not a
Yeah.
gift.
Right.
Okay, now, to your point, I think a project loses its zeal when it's gleaming and all built, when you're going around saying, would you please contribute to our boat launch? It's already built, it loses its zeal. So I really like to get this done
Right.
before
Well, that's why I asked
it's finished.
to have a target of having it done by, let's say, mid-June. We want to be aggressive, because everything can slip and you can wait long enough. And because of that, it'll be hard to go and knock on the door when the thing's done. But I guess the second question is, if let's just say we're just really lucky and all this money comes in, more than the loan amount, can we actually take back part of the 61,000 we contribute out of the general fund?
Yes,
So we
and
have
that's part
around,
of the strategy.
so
Lower
we have
that, and this
somewhere
other,
around 85,000 that,
so then that would come down and it would,
Right.
this side would go
Okay.
up, yes. Now, let's say we've got, and also with additional costs that may come on because of other work, let's say there's an additional, and I'm making this up, I don't know, 20,000. So, we may have all 188,000 there, but maybe we need an additional 20, so some overage could go for that.
Okay, since it's already January and June's not that far away, maybe on every board meeting, just give us an update on what outstanding, what have you got out there, and what's the estimate of when you're gonna get it, and what's the odds?
Yeah, and I'd like to say not in the February meeting, but start that to March. And
Yeah, that's
the reason is
fine.
you'd have the answer to the tribal
Okay.
piece in mid-February. That would help in March doing that.
I want to offer one, just, it's not a caution, but it's just to be very cognizant of this, that if we build it in June versus September and October, okay, then it's going to be harder to get that money repaid because we're pushing it up. If that's a conscious decision that the board makes, that's fine, just an understanding that I may, because I would have a few more months to knock on doors if it's not built until October, September, October. And the fishing season goes on and it's year-round too, so it's not like we build it and say, okay, closed.
Well, you do have to be careful. You have a seasonal issue of building boat things on water too late, different than land type things. And there could be a decision you might end up doing some work this year, some in the next year.
And sometimes the bid comes back and you tell them, hey, I don't want you to do it till then.
We have to look at that. You might, like, if you thought you wanted to wait, you probably would say, let's go ahead and do the removal of woods, the parking lot, the basic structure, but not in the water, as an example, because that's doable. Do the rest in the next spring, because we have a 3-year window, I believe, with the DNR grant.
August of 2017.
Right. But at this time, we're trying to get this all moving, because if we don't, it'll just slip completely.
I think we should have we need to have a target, and if you want to move it out, fine, but we need to have a target that everybody is working toward.
That's right.
So if it's
I mean, I'm comfortable the
mid-June,
way this was, August through October, better than June, frankly. But now, there's one other point that Jay and I discussed, which is, let's say, whenever it's built, June, July, August, whatever, that maybe there's still 10,000 that needs to be repaid of this loan. And no matter how many doors we all knock on, people are saying, we're not going to contribute, we already have that, it's already built, okay? The other way to do that is to, which Jay and I talked about, is for the board to consider, hey, I work with Parks and Rec, do other grants to benefit park improvement projects, bring other monies into the township that way that the township otherwise would have had to fund from their general fund, and then consider the boat launch 10,000 as repaid because a grant was done in another area. So just some things to be aware of. If this is rushed up, there is a risk. Just everybody needs to be fully aware of it.
Gene? I'm involved in 2 other groups that are really interested in helping your cause. One is the Heritage Society, the other is the ABA. They've both pledged that they would be involved monetarily and voluntarily. And in the next 2 months, I can get with both boards and see what kind of dollars we're talking about. And also, there's fundraising events already in planning for this launch on both the ABA side and the Heritage side. Maybe we can get together with the Planning Commission and put everybody together and come up with a solution. But I know there's a lot of interest out there.
Thank you very much. I know the Heritage Society has already given some money, and the other thing too is consider money, but also maybe some great letters of support, so I'll work with you.
Okay, thanks.
So thank you very much.
Okay, anything else on this issue? Thank you, Gene, for your report. Appreciate it. Next item is old business 3, clerk update.
I just wanted to give an update on the progress of the rules of procedures that we were working on. As you know, I want to have the rules of procedures on file for Acme Township. And my goal is to get these rules of procedures discussed, adopted, and implemented by March of 2015. During the summer of 2014, I distributed Peninsula Township rules as a starting point for us. And I received your input at 2 of our board meetings. The general board consensus has been that some language needed updating and parts were redundant. So in late In the late summer, Jean volunteered to assist me and edit our draft rules based on your input. She worked on this in October and November and completed the draft in early December. We met and I contacted the Michigan Township Association, asked some questions. We now have a final draft, which I'm going to have Jeff Jackson review and respond by January 9th, 12th. Tentative, yes, I should add a tentative. I anticipate that the final review draft will be emailed to the board around January 15th, 20th. Included with this email will be directions to the board for reviewing and providing your final input without compromising the Open Meeting Act. I'll organize this input and so that we can have a focused discussion on the priorities at our February board meeting. The board has requested 2 weeks time to review these, and I think this schedule will work. Our February board meeting is on the 3rd, and we can discuss any outstanding issues you may have then. Again, my goal is to have the rules of procedure all zipped up, discuss any remaining issues, adopt the rules, and implement by the end of March 2015. Anybody have any questions?
Very aggressive, but I think it's doable. A lot of good work's gone into it already, so.
Yeah, it's been great, and I want to take this time to just thank Jean so much for her help in straightening out some of the wordage. You've been a huge help with this.
Let's see if they like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and then I just wanted to say that at the Metro meeting that's coming up on January 22nd at 9 a.m., I am not going to be able to make that. And didn't know if anybody on the board would be interested in filling in.
They can't do that because they're not a voted member.
Oh, okay, all right.
They can always go to the meeting, but they can't vote on anything.
Okay.
That's all.
All right. And I also wanted to say that there's no election in February. There will be an election on May 5th. And my third thing is just, we renewed our liability with MML and we received a 1,598 dividend distribution for not having any casualties or, and if anyone would like to take a look at that policy, just come to my office and have you look at it at any time. If anyone has any questions? No questions? Thank you. That's it. It's my day.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I believe we have a student in the back
Oh.
row, just would like to acknowledge her.
Thank you for thank you for being here. If you have anything to be signed at the end, bring it up. Nancy will get one of us to sign it, or she will make sure that's, I know you have to do that a lot. Glad you're here tonight. Hope you enjoyed the dialogue we've had. At this time, we're open for public comment from the audience. Any closing public comment from anybody? Seeing none. Thank you all for being here. We always appreciate it. Anything from the board at this time?